Pope Francis has just produced a new encyclical letter to the Universal Church. It's the fourth of his pontificate. The encyclical is entitled Delixit Nos in Latin, in English, He Loves Us. It's a letter on the love of God, revealed in the heart of Jesus, his sacred heart. It really is a quite beautiful meditation on the love of God for humanity, and also on the Catholic devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The Pope raises at the beginning of his encyclical a question. He wonders whether the symbol of the heart can still carry meaning for today. I mean, we're all familiar with statues and holy cards illustrating the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Here in the Cathedral, over on our side altar, we have a dedication to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And it reflects how significant this devotion to the Sacred Heart has been in Catholic spirituality in recent centuries. Indeed, across Tasmania, we have a number of churches which are dedicated to the Sacred Heart. But I think it's also true that in recent decades, emphasis on the devotion to the Sacred Heart has declined in the Church. So the Pope is really right to ask the question: does this devotion still engage us? To answer this question, he proceeds to give an excellent reflection on the image, the human image of the heart. And he comments, "Yet living as we do in an age of superficiality, rushing frenetically from one thing to another without really knowing why, and ending up as insatiable consumers and slaves to the mechanisms of a market unconcerned about the deeper meaning of our lives, all of us need to rediscover the importance of the heart." I believe this is very true. How often do we stop and explore the inner recesses of our hearts, particularly examining the current state of our hearts? In a world driven by activity, it's so easy to overlook or dismiss the movements of the heart within us. The Pope goes on to comment, if we devalue the heart, we also devalue what it means to speak from the heart, to act from the heart, to cultivate and heal the heart. If we fail to appreciate the specificity of the heart, we miss the messages that the mind alone cannot communicate. We miss out on the richness of our encounters with others. We miss out on poetry. We also lose track of history and our own past, since our real personal history is built with the heart. At the end of our lives, that alone will matter. The sacred scriptures remind us that God does not look at appearances, but rather looks at the heart. So it's the state of our heart that really matters, and not just our external performance. So we can pause for a moment and wonder, as God looks at my heart right now, what does he see? Is there in my heart principally a genuine desire to live in love? Is my heart at peace? Is the state of my heart one of trust and in and surrendered to God. Let us consider the gospel passage that we heard this morning. So Mark describes a very beautiful, very human moment. Jesus is sitting in the temple precinct. We're told that he sat down opposite the treasury. And people were making their donations, many of them being very generous. Then a poor widow comes along and places 2 small coins as a donation. The Lord, witnessing this, says, "This poor widow has put in more than all who have contributed to the treasury." What he reminds us here is of a very important point. It's not the amount of money that counts, but the heart that is inspired to give. It is what is in the heart when a gift is made that finally counts. The story also witnesses to the fact that this poor widow wanted to make a contribution to the temple treasury, even though she had so little. She wanted, in the midst of her own poverty and no doubt great need, to give back to God. So even from the very little she had, she wanted to make a gift to God. This touches another very important truth. Because all we have ultimately comes from God. And when we give, we are in fact giving from what we have already received. We were all recipients of the generous love of God for us. So many ways. And everything we have, all we are, ultimately comes from God. Thus, we want to give something back. And want to give back to God with a generous heart, with a joyful heart. The image of the Sacred Heart that the Pope spoke about is a constant reminder to us that God has loved us first, and that this love is, as the image reveals, a burning love, a fire of love. And it's also true that God longs for us to give back love in return. Pope Francis quoted from St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, who received the image of the Sacred Heart. She said, "He asked for my heart, which I asked him to take, which he did, and then placed myself in his adorable heart, from which he made me see that mine was like a little atom consumed in the fiery furnace of his own." The first thing that we can give, indeed the most important thing that we can give, is ourselves, our hearts, given unconditionally to God. So the prayer of all of us, every Christian, can simply be, "Lord, you have given all to me, and I so offer myself back to you." And these are words that St. Ignatius Loyola expressed, and they really wonderfully capture this idea of our response to the great love of God for us. So he said in this very, very beautiful prayer, "Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty my memory, my understanding, my entire will, all I have and call my own. You have given all to me, and to you, Lord, I return it. Everything is yours, and do with it what you will. Give me only your love and your grace. That is enough for me. This offering of ourselves to God means that we are open to God, to God's will for our lives. We can offer our time and our talent to the Lord. We can give of ourselves to the Lord. And we give ourselves to the Lord in love because we know that we are so greatly loved. Like the widow, we give back generously from what we have. God has given all to us, and so we desire to give back with grateful hearts. I believe in one God,